And we're live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Every Point's a Winner, EPAW. And we're going to go over the 5 games that were played on the weekend. It was round 18 of the NRL competition. And the first game was Bulldogs versus Broncos. And it was at Eight Stadium. And it was 22-18, a big comeback from the Broncos in the second half. Scotty, one of our commentators for the State of Origin, coming up in 2 more days' time. He was most excited that these Broncos got across the line. I always tipped a very, very close match and tipped the Broncos to win in a very close one. We were very unlucky with our ATTS, or anytime try scorers. For a 3-leg, we had hang on, ladies and gentlemen. I'll keep going with this. We just had mad. I have to pull my headphones off. We've just had mad interference, and I've got a delay now from the audio recording, but I'm going to keep going. So, yeah, we were extremely unlucky there. We had Willison, and I'll just keep that recording in any case. It is a delay, so I can't quite hear myself, but I'll pull this headphone halfway off. In any case, it was 22-18. We were very unlucky. I was tossing up between Willison and Piakora, and Piakora was the big forward that went smashing over towards the end of the game. So let's have a look here at the team stats. In possession, it was 47% to the Broncos, 53, a little bit more to the Bulldogs there. Time in possession, 27 minutes. So Bulldogs had the most time in possession, 24 to Broncos. 72% completion rate, both. And then we had the attacks, all runs meters, about 100 more meters there for Canterbury. Line breaks, very significant here for the Broncos, 6-4. And in fact, the tackle breaks were 31 tackle breaks. That's not good for Canterbury, and Canterbury only 23. Big stat there against the Dogs. The offloads, 9-8 in favour of Canterbury. Receipts fairly high for both of them. And just looking at the forced dropouts, they were the same, 2 each. Bombs, 2-1 to the Broncos. Grubbers, you'd expect a lot from both of them, 5 each. Tackles made, 369 Broncos, 328 to the Dogs there. So surprisingly, the Broncos had to do a lot more tackling. An effective tackle was 91% for the Broncos and only 88 to the Dogs. Negative plays here was fairly even. 15 Broncos over 13 negative plays and errors from the Dogs. Penalties conceded, it was fairly even. It was about 6-5 in favour of the Broncos. And looking at the ruck infringements, 5, a lot from the Broncos over 2 of the Dogs. It was an interesting match. It was one that I thought that the Bulldogs had to win, but it was also equally important for the Broncos to win and stand up. Yet we got our money back from a couple of the try scorers, but we did need Willison to go over. What I was most upset about, I did entertain Billy Walters, if you remember, through the preview, at 10-1 would be good value, but we just didn't know when he was going to come on and how much time he was going to get. And my nightmare came true when he went crashing over at 10-1. God knows what we could have got back for that. But anyway, we move on to the next match. So onwards and upwards for Broncos, and really, Dogs need to hope that once the origin period is over, which is at the end of this week, that it all starts to shape up for them, because that's 2 in a row they've lost, 1 to Penrith and 1 to Broncos. So they really need to pick their game up if they're going to stop the leakage in the boat at the moment. So let's go to the next game. This was a very entertaining match. Canberra just held on by 4 points in the end. KO Weeks was the outstanding man of the match. I gave 2 points to Sloan, who really stood up and scored 2 amazing tries. And we nearly gave it to Flanagan, the kid for the coach's son, for 1 point, but we gave it to another player, which we'll go through in a second. So let's have a look. 28-24. And it was the Geo Stadium, so I was freezing down there. Ice blocks were coming off people's faces and off their moustache and beard. Xavier Savage played outstanding. What I noticed, I just watched some of the extended highlights before this program, and at the speed, the line speed of Canberra, wow, you've got to be on your best behaviour, any defensive side in the competition. No wonder they're leading the comp and leading it quite convincingly. And they've got those buys to come, and they're going to really have a nice run into the final series, no doubt. I honestly think they will wrap up the minor premiership. I doubt whether Melbourne could snatch it off them, but stranger things have happened, and it is rugby league, so we know all about that. Okay, so the conversions was very, very good conversion there from Jamal Fogarty and Kyle Flanagan. Got 3 from 4. Xavier Savage, what Weeks' tries. Wow. He's on the front cover of this episode, episode 33 of EPAW, and his 2 tries where he broke away from broken play was just amazing. The speed, he hasn't got long legs, but they're so muscular, and the speed at which he hits the ground, short to the ground, and you don't know which way he's going to go, left or right. It was an amazing bit that cut one of his broken play tries down from Little, who ankle tapped him, and he still got up because there wasn't enough cover defence. He still got up and went over. So he was an outstanding, one of his best matches I've seen. But St George, I'm going to give it to them. I thought they were gone for all money. I did say to Peter they just need to score a couple of tries, and that's what brought them back into the match. One of their tries was an amazing try to Sewer. Yes, there was a few fumbling hands in that try, but it was so entertaining. And Jaden Sewer, of course, we had him last week. We didn't have him this week. I didn't play this match. I did tell you I wasn't going to play the St George match because I couldn't catch Kyle Flanagan. I can't catch Little, and I can very rarely catch Valentine Holmes. So I watched on. I gave you the tips, and we didn't have Kyle Weeks, but we did have Terrell Sloan, and there was a few other players that didn't cross the line for us. But in any case, it was half-time. It was 12-6 to Canberra. Sin bins, there was 1 to St George, Dale Clemmer. And going on to the team stats here, it was completion rate was a lot more for Canberra, and that's the difference. St George put themselves under immense pressure in that first half. They couldn't complete. Only 67%. That's something Coach Flanagan will have to have a look at. And 84%, very good for Canberra. Their all-runs meters, Canberra just rang rings around them, 300 more than St George. Post-contact meters, 93 more metres for Canberra. Line breaks 6-3. That has to be a bit alarming for Coach Flanagan. Tackle breaks 27 Canberra and only 18 for St George. Average set distance 51 metres to Canberra, very good, and 44 to St George. There's quite a few stats here that are really peeling up against St George, and they're starting to backpedal, though I reckon for courage against a hot shot Canberra side in Canberra, you've got to give it to them for their effort, no doubt about that. So when a couple of their Origin stars come back, let's see how they go. And I did notice that Little and Cook were working good there together. Usually they'll replace each other, but over the last couple of weeks he has had them on together, and they seem to be having a pretty good understanding as Little goes into dummy half. Dummy passes 38 to St George, but I don't know who fell for them. 17 to Canberra. Forced dropouts, 2 to St George. A lot of pressure there from Canberra, and only 1 to Canberra. And just looking at the Bombs here, they're under a lot of pressure. They're trying to really find out St George with their kick defusals, and it was 8 bombs to 3. Defence, very important here, 92% effectiveness there, effective tackles for Canberra, and only 90% for St George. Fairly even though, but the missed tackles is another concern for Coach Flanagan. 27 missed tackles and 18 only for Canberra. Ineffective tackles, 12, 2 more than Canberra for St George. Errors from negative play, 14 errors from St George. I think that is the rule. There's been 4 or 5 major stats really showing how hard St George had to work because of their incompletion rate and their fumbling. Penalties conceded, fairly even, 6-5 to Canberra. Ruck infringements, 2 to Canberra. And that's about all she wrote in the end. Canberra held on in a most entertaining match, that one. But going forward, St George need to blueprint the way they came back, but they need to really have a look at those stats, particularly the training and coaching staff need to really have a look at that, and Coach Flanagan to see that there was too many holes in the defence. Canberra are an amazing attacking side. I'll give them that. Let's get to the next match. Now, this is where we collected big bickies. Although our second banker didn't go over, every other leg went over, and it started off with Elise Katoa. He's been a magician for us. And Purdue, Derby, and Drinkwater were all doubles, and then 2 trebles there off Drinkwater, Purdue into Katoa. Fantastic. And then into Derby. The only one that would have collected every 5 or 6 legs we had would have been if Samuel Hughes went over. But what a way to go. Storm held on 26 to 20. And got to hope you guys jumped on those tips, because I was sitting back there just rubbing my hands together. It was up in North Queensland, so they got a few decisions go their way, but at least they showed a lot of character. And finally, people have understood how good Purdue is, because he had no chance of breaking that defence, but his speed, similar to the way Kaya Weeks can accelerate off the mark, is phenomenal. I've marked him up from when he had his first game for North Queensland, and I'm glad people decided and put pressure on the coach to push him back to the centre. And Clifford should have never been sacked, as I've told you nearly every week, and he had a really good game. But it was a shame that they went down. Storm took their foot off the accelerator, and Katoa went over in the 8th minute. Big Nelson, I did entertain him, but because he's getting better with every game, and he's having to not come from the bench. He's starting with the Origin players missing. Nick Meaney had an outstanding match. I think most of the pundits gave him the man of the match. Drinkwater, Robert Darby, and Jackson Purdue were the try scorers for North Queensland. It was 4 tries to 3. Really, pound for pound, I don't think they could have won the match. I think Melbourne must have been getting blasted in parts of that game from their coach and the administrators, because they looked like tossing it at one stage. And in fact, North Queensland did hit the lead somewhere around the middle part of the second half. So there would have been a lot of spit flying from Bellamy's mouth, there's no doubt about it. At halftime, it was 12-all, and I'm sure they would have got a roasting at halftime because I'd imagine Coach Bellamy would have expected a lot more from his team. Okay, so let's have a look at the team stats. That's really, really important. See where there may have been some clues to what happened in this game, apart from what we saw and what we heard. Okay, so completion rates. Very, very important with possession. Only 46% possession for Cowboys. That's really alarming. But this is a bit disappointing too, why Bellamy would have been spitting. 54%, not that much better for Storm, but a bit better. Time of possession, nearly half an hour to the Storm and only 25 to the Cowboys. Completion rate, 79 to the Storm and only 74 to the Cowboys. All runs meters, fairly even with 100 more meters to the Storm. Post-contact meters, pretty much 110 more, or actually 170 more to the Storm. Very impressive. Line breaks, surprisingly, 6 Cowboys and 5 Melbourne. Average set distance, fairly impressive from Cowboys, 46 metres and 45 metres there for the Storm. Offloads, fairly even, 12 to 11 Storm. Receipts were fairly even, a lot more though to Storm. The total passes, yeah, they threw it around the Storm. There's no doubt about it. Probably about an extra 30 passes to the Storm. Kicking here was 6 more kicks to the Storm. You've got to expect that with the sort of attacking side that they are, and they try and pin you down in your own red zone. 4 dropouts were even. Bombs 7 to 5 for the Storm. Grubbers 3 to 2 to the Storm. But here's the important thing: the defence. Tackles made, effective tackles 89% Storm and only 86 to the Cowboys. Missed tackles 25 to the Storm, 36 to Cowboys. That's got to be worry for Coach Payton. Intercepts 1-0 for the Storm. Ineffective tackles 14 for the Storm, 24 for the Cowboys. And you don't really need to see much else apart from let's have a look at the errors. 14 errors in negative play for the Cowboys, only 10 to the Storm. And that's about all she wrote there. They all used their interchanges, 7 apiece. There was a couple of big hits in this and 3 head injury assessments, 2 to the Cowboys and 1 to the Storm. So it ended up being 26 to 20. Wasn't much in it at the end, but luckily for the Storm's sake, they moved into second position and it pushed Canterbury back to third, or the Dogs back to third. So now they're in a position to try and in a race with Canberra for the Shield, the minor premiership. So let's have a look here at the next match. As far as Cowboys are concerned, once they get Dearden back and tighten that defence up, yes, they're missing some big forwards and some Origin players that'll be coming back, including Nanai. They've got a bit of work to do because they've lost too many games back to back to back. So whether they can make it to the 8 is questionable from here because the divisions are starting to widen as the top teams just keep on winning now. Okay, let's have a look at the next match. And this was a beauty. This was a beauty. And hopefully you followed the tips. Stafford Tower let us down for the second week in a row, but we got Charlie Staines and we got Tedesco. But geez, I was holding my breath. That was in the last 40 seconds. Oh, so lucky to get that double. But our main banker let us down, which was Stafford Tower. And one of our other main selections was scratched. He didn't get the run for the Roosters. Yeah, Billy Smith was pulled out of the game prior to the start of the game, so that threw selections in the turmoil. So I just moved Charlie Staines up. I moved all the players up that we had in the third, fourth, fifth, and sixth leg. Shamefully, we missed out, I think, on one player. If Stafford went over, we would have had a four-legger. I don't usually put four-leggers on unless I've got a bit of extra money. And after the Cowboys match, I thought, yeah, we'll go for this. But yeah, we'll click on the full-time result. East made a late comeback, but basically Tigers dominated for the first half. And even in parts of the second half, it wasn't until the momentum shifted somewhere around the close to the quarter mark of the second half, and in the last 30 to 35 minutes, Roosters started to score at will, and those Tigers fans were holding their breath. They were quite good Tigers, and it was so good for the fans to get a win, and especially Benji Marshall, the coach Marshall. He's had a lot of issues. I mean, for the Lockie Galvin incident, and then Luai being injured, and then Luai going to the Origin. So they've done outstandingly well. And I think that's the first time three brothers have scored in one match, as far as we know this year in the NRL rounds, the 18 rounds. Latu Fainu, Siona Fainu, and Samuela Fainu, all really good players of high potential. So congratulations to the West Tigers. Daniel Tupou went over in the 34th minute. Mark Nawanga went over in the 38th minute. Hugo Savala, that's the guy I was tossing up. When we lost Billy Smith, I thought, do I put Savala in? No, and I just moved the selections up. I needed to put that extra East player in. Tedesco in the 79th and 30 seconds counting down. And Mark Nawanga went over again in the 74th minute. Sanders Smith converted quite well, 4 from 5. And Adam Dewey was outstanding with a boot. He had a couple of ill-disciplined moments in there. Although he had a good game, there's a few things that really gave East the advantage to come home strong. At halftime, it was 20-10, and it was a shame that they let that try in just before halftime, which gave East quite a bit of momentum. But they did fight back, the Tigers, and I didn't think they were going to lose from that moment on. I was holding my breath in the last 5 or 6 minutes, I'll tell you. But congratulations to them, especially to beat Roosters, which were high flying and well into the top 8 race. So hopefully you don't get the wooden spoon, you Tigers. I really pray this year you don't. But we need to get Luai back into the team and get the Fainu brothers a lot more time, not just benching, put them on there. Okay, so let's have a look at the team stats, and then we'll finish with the last game. Okay, team stats here. And it was completion rate, 83%, very good for the Tigers compared to their usual completion rate, 81% to the Roosters. Time and possession, 2 more minutes there to the Roosters, 27-25. And then all runs meters, interesting. Tigers ran hardcore, another 100 meters there. Post contact meters, very similar, only 6 separating them. Line breaks 6-4 Roosters. You'd expect that because once a couple of ball handling errors happened for the Tigers, Roosters were chasing hard. They started to come home quickly. Average set distance 47 metres to the Tigers, very good, and only 44 to the Roosters. Kick return metres 175. They didn't run as hard. They looked quite flat in that first half, the Roosters. 175 and 208 to the Tigers there. Okay, let's have a look here. The offloads, Tigers 10. They threw caution to the wind and just went for it, didn't they? And 4 offloads to the Roosters there. Receipts fairly high from the Roosters, fairly consistent from the Tigers there. Total passes 254 Roosters, 202 to the Tigers. Kicking fairly even. There's nothing there that's outstanding, but forced dropouts to the Tigers, who were under a bit of pressure, 2-1. Bombs, wow, a lot more bombs there, probably from Sandon Smith. 6-1 there for the Roosters. A lot more pressure there. And trouble is, if you don't get under the ball, a lot of teams are making big errors these days and causing grief for themselves by not catching their bombs. So they're letting the ball bounce, and it was only very disappointing. That's something that Marshall needs to look at. Only 36% kick defusal. That's pretty bad, and 80 for the Roosters. So that's something that has not been good there for the. Admittingly, there were 6-1 for the Roosters, but if I was Coach Marshall, I'd be looking very, very closely at that stat and making sure the players that are covering at the back get under the ball and have a go at it. Even if you knock it on, it's better than letting the ball bounce and then freakishly it bounces back into the side that's attacking inside the red zone. So anyway, the defence here, effective tackles 89% to both sides. Tackles made 337, fairly even here. 356 Roosters had to tackle a little bit more. Missed tackles 33 to the Tigers, so fairly even. 26 only for the Roosters. Intercepts 1-0 to Tigers. Ineffective tackles. This is really interesting for Coach Robinson. They were definitely off their game, Roosters, the other day. 16 ineffective tackles to 7 West Tigers. Negative play again here. A lot of errors, surprise errors for the Roosters. 12 and only 7 to the Tigers. Penalties conceded, 6-4. Few ill-disciplined things there, more from the Roosters. And that's about all she wrote. Just going back to the player stats. Nafahu White was the most tackler with 45. Tristan Hope had a fairly good game, 41. Most run meters, Nafahu White and Terrell May did play out of his skin, 204. I was sort of hoping that Terrell May would score after being let go by the Roosters. And most line breaks, yet again, Teddy Tedesco and 1 to Charlie Staines. So not much else we can say about that match. And as we head towards our last match, don't forget to tune into this channel, to Every Point's a Winner, for the State of Origin final. It's basically the final, all right? It's the decider, and 2 sides that are desperate to win it. So I think we're going to see one of the greatest matches. Scotty Pierce McLeod is coming up, our co-host here on Every Point's a Winner, and he'll be calling when the Queensland side has the ball, and I'll be calling the New South Wales side when we have the ball. Depending on what happens, if there's 6 again and what have you, of course, we'll try and just call both teams. But I think him being a man Queensland, I thought that'd be an idea. We will have a preview before the match. Hopefully he gets here about an hour before the match. So we'll have a really good discussion on key playmakers and our anytime try scorers. He's very good with that. And on our little home competition, it's very important if you get both try scorers. We both tip for both Queensland and New South Wales. And you get 2 points for picking the winner, whether it's Queensland or New South Wales. So a very, very interesting competition. He has a 2-point buffer on me, and I think I've got another 5 lengths buffer on Peter Connors. who's lagging at the rear of the field, the defending champion. Will he make a big burst if New South Wales win and he picks both the anytime try scorers? He needs it. Welcome, Pete, if you're having a little chuckle and a listen. You're not out of the race, mate. Okay, so this was 30-12. It was the 4 Points Park. As I said before in the preview of the match, how many games have they had at 4 Points Park? It seems they've played every second week there. Phenomenal, or at least 2 out of every 3 weeks. 30-12. Rabbitohs made a late charge here, but and we had one of our anytime try scorers, Lee Hopewadi, who was our standout, got held up over the line again. My God, I can't collect off that guy. Phenomenal. And we also had Tyron Munro disallowed try. Had those two got up, we had a 4-legger, a 3-legger, and we did get our 2-legger with Tallis Duncan. But, geez, it was hard work sweating out that last game like that. And disallowed tries tend to always go against EPAW for some crazy, strange reason. Right, our other standout was Tom Travojevic, and because he was finally put up at a decent value of $1.95, $2 with some sports bets, and he went over twice, Tommy. Dale Cherry Evans, that hurt. I don't know how many times we've stood out Dale Cherry Evans, but at least Tolotol Collar from Broken Play got that last try for our double into Tallis Duncan. Thank goodness. Isaiah Tass, we had a double, we had a treble and a quadrilla going into Isaiah Tass, one of the South games, probably 6-7 weeks ago, if your memory is good, if you're a fan here at EPAW, and he couldn't cross, and he just picked up the ball. The ball was there and went over for the last try of the match, second last try of the match at the 76th minute. Ruben Garrick had a fairly good game, but his conversions were only 3 from 6. Disappointing if you took him as a point scorer there, though you would have done all right because he went over twice. So he made up for his bad goal kicking. But the worst thing for South, had they at least got two of those goals, it would have been a very, very close finish. They got 0 from 3. They didn't have a goal kicker. And that's what really killed them in the end, in their little hunt back towards destroying the Seagulls at their home ground. Let's have a look here at the Seagulls, the Sea Eagles. I used to play for the Seagulls. Hilarious. Okay, let's have a look here. The team stats. Possession was 52% to Manly, 48% to South. They had an awful first half, South, and the momentum just kept on going Manly's way. And I always say you better put an extra 4 points for a side that's chasing down Manly, because they get a lot of decisions go their way, and they get a lot of luck when it comes to decisions for them, but against our anytime try scorers here. We've had a lot of bad luck with Manly games. Well, we got out of jail, thank goodness. Here we go. Time in possession, 28 minutes there to the Manly Sea Eagles, 27. So it's fairly even for South. 80% completion rate for Manly and 76, both pleasing to the coaches there for South. All runs meters, an extra 200 metres there for Manly. Post-contact metres, an extra 20 for Manly. Line breaks, 6 to Manly. That mainly would have been in the first half, and 4 to South. Tackle breaks, 36 to Manly. 36. And fairly high for South as well, 29. But that's pretty alarming for the super coach. Let's have a look here. Average set distance, 35 metres. And only to Manly and only 31 to South. That's worrying also. Kick return meters, 172. Manly, 134. Some bad figures coming up against South here, why they lost this match. Passing, offload 6-5 to Manly. Receipts fairly high for both, fairly consistent. Total passes, 254 Manly and only 231 for South. Don't forget they didn't have Latrell Mitchell setting up and Alex Johnson. Did he have a big game at fullback? I don't like him at fullback. I'm sorry. Dummy passes 10-8 to Manly. Kicking, the kick defusal here, 100% to Manly. Wow. No pressure from the kicks. Don't forget they're missing Corey. What's his name? I can't even think of his name. Their kicker anyway. Corey. 75% there to South. Yeah, they let the ball bounce again, and trouble's going to happen. And there might have been a few fumbles as well. Bombs here, 6-3. A lot more there for Manly. They put them under a lot of pressure. Dale Cherry Evans. Tackles made here, 360 and 89% effective tackles for South. That's surprising. But the tackles made, 360, they were gassed, an extra 30 more than Manly, who also had a good completion rate there, effective tackles of 90%. Negative play here, or ineffective tackles, 9 South, 8 Manly, fairly even. 13 errors in negative play and errors from South, and only 10 to Manly. Penalties conceded 7-6, fairly even. Ruck infringements fairly even. And what could you say apart from that? Manly did play better than they have been playing. I think they need to improve a hell of a lot more if they're going to be serious contenders. I haven't rated them. They might be fighting for a place in the 8, but they need to win away from home, because it's not about just win. Look at Canberra, how many times they've won away from home. Yes, recently they've won a couple of games at home, but the amount of times they've been on the road has been phenomenal and put the two competition points in the bag. So I can't see Manly being a major threat to this competition on that performance. And I think that their coach Seabold would have been a little bit disappointing that they gave South a big sniff at the latter part of that game. Anyway, don't forget, please, ladies and gentlemen, I implore you to hit the subscribe, share with your friends, especially if they're NRL fans or if they like to make big bickies from the tips here. And we finished up on top for the weekend, especially the Cowboys match got us a big collect. We missed out that much on 2 or 3 matches, but there was only 5 matches, and we got our money back in most of the matches. The one we didn't play with was the St George match, and luckily, because our nemesis went over in the anytime try scorer department. So anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Don't forget, tune in here for the live broadcast from free-to-air TV, the big preview. We're going to advertise it, we'll promote it. We hope to try and get more than at least 166, 167 people than what we had last time watching it live. So thanks very much for joining us here on Every Point's a Winner. We're now reaching up to the 36-minute mark. I had horrendous audio issues. For starters, we still recorded it, and if there's any problem with the YouTube recording, I'll try and sub it in later. But in any case, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you here on Wednesday. Can't wait for the State of Origin. Join us then. Axel Phillips, bye for now.